Our agenda, the time is 2:07 p.m. First, we'd like to have approval of the minutes, and before us, we have the minutes of the January 14th meeting. Councilor, have you had an opportunity to review those?
I have.
And do we have a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. The minutes of January 14th are approved. This afternoon, for everyone that's attending the meeting, we did want to take this opportunity to just talk about our 2025 legislative agenda. I know there's been a lot of interest within the public about what did and did not happen during this legislative session. During my time with serving on this committee as well as serving on the council, I found this particular session to definitely be a bit different than others. And so we thought what we would do this afternoon is to have a perspective of what did and did not happen, a little bit of lessons learned, a little bit talking about the strategy. And so I have that from two different perspectives this afternoon. First on our agenda, we'll have Mr. Earl Hilliard, Jr., who is our Government Affairs Director, I guess I'll call him that, for the city of Birmingham, and he has members of his team here. And Mr. Hilliard does work as part of our team, boots on the ground there in Montgomery, trying to build the relationships and talk about what we feel legislation that would benefit the city. So, Mr. Hilliard, if you'll just talk about the 2025 legislative session from that vantage point. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. Earl Hilliard Jr., Senior Public Affairs Officer. First thing I want to clear up is that I'm the Senior Public Affairs Officer, and Camila Gray Lewis is the Director of Government Affairs.
My apology.
I've got to go back in my office, and it's it's going to be easier and safer if we get it straight. This was an interesting year. What I'd like to do is I'd like the Jones Group to come up and allow them to be very technical about what did and didn't happen, and then Alyssa Thomas will come up and talk about a few things, and I'll back clean up for them.
Then, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, as you know, as a municipality, we do have representatives there that go out and actually try to form these relationships to move forward our agenda items. So we have Mr. Neil Morrison, who is a part of the Jones Group LLC, and he's going to talk about that strategy and how that process works. Thank you, Mr. Morrison.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. First of all, we have other folks from the Jones Group here with us. But let me start off by saying how much we greatly appreciate y'all allowing us to continue to be a part of your team. It means a lot. Our whole team really believes in the city of Birmingham and what you're trying to do to improve the quality of life for people that live here. Apologize for my voice. We had severe storms in Coleman over the weekend, and my house was hit pretty hard. So I've been outside with a chainsaw for 2 days, and so all this is in my head, sawdust and stuff. But to say the least, this is one of the probably most unique sessions that I've been involved in 35 years. To start off, we had a new President Pro Tem elected in the Senate. Senator Greg Reed from Walker County stepped down, took a job with the governor's office, and we had a new President Pro Tem elected, Senator Garland Gudger from Coleman County, which is my senator. So that made it kind of interesting in the sense that the whole dynamics of the way the Senate was led this year was different than what we've been used to in the past. Plus, anytime you bring on new leadership, new priorities are set, and you have to change and flow with that. Then we were hit with something out of the left field that no one, not anybody in the House or Senate leadership, no one expected. We received a budget from the governor's office, y'all, that totally wiped out agencies that had been historically funded for many, many years, on top of state agencies that were cut. So we were all faced with that, and nobody was prepared for it. And it's not that we do not think that agencies shouldn't justify their appropriations. They should. but no one had expected it. So all of a sudden, we get a budget, and half of the programs just here in Jefferson County were totally wiped out. And so we're scrambling, and so we spent many hours working back and forth with y'all about the concerns that y'all were hearing from your constituents, back and forth with the Jefferson County delegation, back and forth with the governor's office, all the chairs of the budget committees, and many, many hours spent on trying to insert that funding back, at least most of it, if not all of it. And we're here today to say that we're very happy that we were able to work with all the folks we talked about, and of course back and forth with y'all and your team, and the mayor's office and the mayor's team. And we were able to get the funding restored, and I'll give the credit to our local Jefferson County delegation. They really rose to the level that we needed them to ensure that funding was put back. And so, projects like the Magic City Classic, which a lot of people don't understand, y'all, doesn't just impact the city of Birmingham. It impacts the whole state, and particularly about a 5 or 6 county radius, because even back in Coleman, where I'm from, we have people that stay in the hotels up there just to come down because the hotels here filled up. And so we were able to restore that. And then we were also able to restore the Civil Rights Museum. And again, y'all, sometimes people have the misconception of what these programs are and what they do. But people forget the amount of money, and I'll just use these 2 examples. I can tell you all of them if you want me to, but these 2. The economic impact that they have not only on the city of Birmingham, Jefferson County, a 6 or 7 county radius, but the whole state of Alabama, because people fly in to go to that game. They also come in from all over the world to visit Civil Rights Museum. People study the movement that happened here in Alabama, and they replicate it around the world. And again, I can come back later because Greg will throw something at me in a minute for talking to him. But the point I'm trying to make is, with everybody working together, we were able to restore the majority of these funds. But the tension started brewing from that point forward. And what I mean by the tension amongst legislators, different branches of government. So it was a very stressful, mentally stressful session. We were constantly in contact working with all groups that we could think of to try to keep harmony, which is very challenging when you're dealing with 138 different individuals. We did have several bills that y'all had asked us to help, and the League of Municipalities we're working on. I've given you a handout. Well, I didn't give it to you, but I presented a handout, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but there's some of the examples of bills that we'll talk about that was part of the League of Municipalities program and y'all's. One of them was by Representative Allman, and this bill basically will make it an easier process to appeal a decision by municipal zoning boards. That was something that y'all were hearing from your constituents. Y'all presented that to us, then the League of Municipalities was hearing that statewide. So that's just a process that makes it easier for constituents around the state to have an appeal process, and the process is a lot easier to deal with. Then, of course, one that we've all championed, actually Representative John Knight started this 25, 30 years ago, and we've now been able to move forward on it, and that's the bill that would cut the sales tax on food, which nobody's opposed to. So that bill was the next step of it. They implemented another 1% that would come off of food. One of them that we noticed the other night, you had some folks come before the city council that were concerned with, is we got involved and helped with the passage of the bill by Senator Williams that deals with truck weights and how heavy those trucks can be when they're crossing through not only the counties but cities. And I know there was a person here at your last council meeting that asked a question about that. That is a home run that allows Department of Public Safety to do their job and weigh those trucks, but it also helps the industry itself move materials around. So we came to a compromise, and it's a win-win for everybody. because a lot of these trucks, y'all, were destroying city streets and county roads. So we had to come up with something. So that was by Jack Williams, and that bill passed. And stop me anytime if you want me to elaborate more. Two other bills, and then we'll get into bills of interest. Senator Barfoot, I know we've heard from people all over the state of Alabama that we've got to do something about these guns that are being adjusted and made into like semi-machine guns. So Senator Barfoot had two bills. One of them prohibits the possession, sale, and use of parts or combination of parts intended to convert a pistol into a machine gun. It makes that a felony now just to own those parts. Number two is a bill that restricts anyone that's convicted of a felony of a violent firearm from shooting into an occupied building. This came up probably 2 years ago in one of your council meetings, and y'all have said, Neil, we got to do something. We got to make it a stronger penalty if someone is shooting into an occupied building. So that bill was passed. I will briefly mention this, and if you want me to elaborate more, there was another bill that impacted the whole state of Alabama, which further created some tension through the session, which further compounded local legislation, which I'll get into in a minute. And that was the bill that Senator Roberts had that dealt with the Birmingham Waterworks. When that bill came up, we did everything trying to work with everybody. Y'all were down there constantly trying to help us work on that. But, the bill ultimately passed, but it created some tension in both chambers, specifically in the Senate chamber, that kind of bled down to other stuff we were trying to achieve. And so not only did local legislation here for the city of Birmingham and Jefferson County come to a screeching halt, about 80% of local legislation statewide, y'all did not pass because of the tension over that issue. So that happened. One other item that y'all had brought up a long time ago, and we've been working on it for 2 years, just to give you an update on it real quick, is the issue with the county personnel board. And so we've worked diligently with the county, of course, the mayor's office, and we've been working with the county personnel board lobbyists. And so we have come a long way on sitting down, agreeing to address certain issues, and to give y'all an update, we'll be meeting with them again next week. And I'll give you an update, or we'll give you an update after that meeting. So we're working with them without legislation, because everybody understands we got to have some changes that will benefit everybody in this county, and so we're working on that. And I will give the county personnel board credit. They're the one that they came to the table and said, look, let's just all sit down and work through this. So I appreciate their efforts on that. We did provide a list of bills of interest that several of the council members have asked us to follow, track, and help pass this last sessions. I will not get into all those. You do have a copy of them. One of them that we thought was really interesting was by Representative Faulkner, House Bill 333, that allows 2 or more cities to create a shared regional law enforcement training center. So in layman terminology, what that means is, I'll make up fictitious names. You could have a city B out here that reaches out to city A and says, we don't have the resources, but we need more training for our law enforcement. Let's put our resources together and build a shooting range. And then they can pull their resources together, and then that allows both municipalities, law enforcement, to use that range together, and then both cities absorb that cost. It's getting harder and harder for law enforcement officers to find somewhere to go and stay certified on firearms. So that was an interesting, we thought, bill. I think you will have a couple of cities in Jefferson County that are going to take advantage of that. You had asked us to kind of tell you what we think we need going forward. So I'm one of these individuals, and I say the Jones Group, we always like to learn from the past. And so what we learned this past session is never take anyone for granted. You never know what's going to arise, and when it's going to arise, it's going to impact what you're trying to achieve. So let's always try to strive and be prepared at all times, and let's be prepared for the next session sooner than normal. So the next session will start in January because it's an election year. I know y'all have an election in August. So what we would like to kindly and respectfully request is that after the city election in August, that y'all come back together as a body sometime by the end of September and start discussing what you want your legislative agenda to be. Because what we do not want, we don't want to run into the deal that we're on top of January and we're just now advertising because it's election year. Now, for the folks that are listening, what I mean by that, trust me, these men and women are going to want to come into Montgomery and get out of Montgomery in a very quick period of time. So what we would like to do is have anything that y'all want already advertised, or at least prepared to be advertised no later than December 1. So that will allow us to work with the city's, the mayor's government relations folks and your folks to then be able to find a sponsor and have it, what I'm going to call pre-introduced, pre-filed. So that way we don't get caught if the stress level and the tension rises high again like it did this session. Because there's several pieces of local legislation, y'all, and I won't get into all the reasons why we just didn't get to this session. So let's try to come up with an agenda of what you want, discuss it, y'all let us know. And then, of course, we'd like to do what we historically do, and that is meet with the local delegation sometime the first part of December to make them aware of what we're going to ask. Because the session will start on January the 13th, 2026. So our goal is to have any local legislation y'all want already pre-filed, and that way we can move those bills quick and hopefully get them passed before we get too far in the session. So that's where we're at. Like I said, unfortunately, things out of all of our control occurred that jeopardized a lot of good local legislation. Not just for the city of Birmingham. I want people who are listening to understand it. So it has no reflection on the city itself. It was statewide. And I'll be glad to answer any questions, or I can go in further in depth on some of these bills, whatever you'd like for me to do.
Well, I just want to, before we stop and go into any questions that either of us may have, I do want to thank you and the Jones Group, as well as the mayor's team, the government affairs team, for the work that was done during this session and the representation that you gave to the city of Birmingham to support the legislation that did come out and that didn't come out. Because as we can see, even though you end the session, work does not stop at that point as you go on and try to get other bills and other items through that will affect the city of Birmingham. So thank you so much to all of you for what you've done. Dr. O'Quinn, did you have any questions, any comments?
No, but I'm hearing you loud and clear in terms of, the city, getting the city's legislative agenda done earlier. We will try to do that. The caveat being that we'll have at least 2 new council members coming, in the next quadrennium. And definitely, want to have some level of input, from the councilors that are actually going to be representing, the city during the next session. That being said, there were several issues on our legislative agenda that, never had a chance to gain any traction. And those things are still really important to us. Particularly the issues related to the land bank and the housing trust fund, and those types of issues where we're trying to make progress in the city by going, like the mayor says, vertical with housing. So I feel confident that our legislative agenda will look similar, you know, with the exception of having stuff like the Glock switch, you know, deleted from it because that got taken care of. You know, one of the things that, you know, you mentioned that I would imagine in January, you know, that legislative session is going to look significantly different because it is a election year, and, you know, senators and representatives will be less likely to take on, you know, controversial bills, and so I'm gonna pray to God that we don't have another session like we did this past one. That being said, you know, I'm sure there will be lots of red meat issues that, you know, get brought up just like they do every year. So, in any case, you know, I guess, given our experience this past session, you know, I felt like we made the effort to go down and communicate with our Jefferson County delegation. But, you know, I can't help but be a little disheartened that, you know, when we gave them the opportunity to speak to us, you know, they didn't share their concerns. So I don't know how we overcome that, you know, or, you know, now that the waterworks, you know, issue is, at least for the moment, behind us, you know, I just got to wonder if, you know, there's other lingering things that are gonna get sprung on us in the future. Like, part of me is asking, all right, what are they coming after next? You know, so I think, you know, we've gotten, or at least I've heard, you know, speculation amongst Birmingham residents that, you know, y'all had to know something, you know, y'all had to, you know, y'all had to know that, you know, something like this was coming. And I've said over and over again, you know, even when we asked them, you know, they didn't say anything. So, you know, that's one of the things that I want to be better attuned to is, what are they concerned about, but they're not talking to us about? Sure. And because I want to be proactive in trying to address those issues, so that they don't feel compelled, you know, that they have to preempt the city of Birmingham, take away some authority, or otherwise diminish us in you know, more. So, you know, if there are those types of lingering issues, definitely, you know, would like you guys to help us make sure that those types of things don't blow up.
So to answer the first part of your question, if those pieces of legislation that y'all are still want to be a top priority, if you can go ahead and have those start being advertised like next week, then that would be great. A lot of people don't understand, just because we just advertised it, say, 3 months ago, some people think, well, we can just introduce it again. No, every time a session ends, you have to start all over. So those two bills that you mentioned, if y'all are still interested in them, then I would suggest that you go ahead and ask for those to be advertised now, and so that we already have the advertisement behind us. To let you know what we've done on that other issue, sir, Greg is here in the back somewhere, but Greg called his team together and pretty well the same thing you just said he said to us. And so what we have been doing is reaching out to various legislators in this geographical area. And we've pretty well have said, any concerns you have, whether they're something you might think is insignificant or something that's huge, I assure you, we will make sure that the council or a council member, someone will sit down and talk to you about it. So we are stressing that to not only Jefferson County delegation, because a lot of people don't understand with as large as Jefferson County and City of Birmingham are, a lot of time this legislation is what they call statewide, but it only impacts. So we're even telling people across the state, if there's a heartburn out there, let's not react until we've all at least sat down and have talked. So we have taken it upon ourselves, sir, to address that with not only the delegation, but other key players. You see something, we'll set up a meeting, and we've promised them that somebody will sit down with them and talk to them about it. So we'll keep stressing that, and I assure you, we'll make you aware of anything that we're hearing before the session starts or during the session. But in fairness to everybody, and I'll say this publicly, nobody knew that bill was going to be introduced until the day it introduced. Now, when I say that, people were aware that folks were working on, so it caught everybody off guard. So I don't want the people out here to reflect back on y'all and think, well, you should have known. Well, okay, it's hard to know if I got something in my pocket when I'm going to pull that out and introduce it until it happens. But anyway, so we're trying to do that. But one last time, anything that you want, that you know, let's go ahead and advertise it now.
Thank you.
Anything?
Thank you. I agree with Dr. O'Quinn in that I do like this proposed timeline and the, just the thought that we do need to start working sooner as a means of trying to, again, we'll go back and we'll hear from the team to see what we'd put out there for 2025 that didn't make it, and that maybe we could move into that area, and they're going to talk to us about that in a minute. But I do like this particular timeline, not that we haven't followed it before, but I do feel that we could, have something in writing that gives us this outline of which way to go. So I thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm also appreciative of you. I know there was a lot of misconception about what the council did or did not do in order when it came to the waterworks bill and our knowledge of what was happening in the timeline that we knew something was happening. And I can speak for Dr. O'Quinn and myself. I believe we had been in and out of the State House and had talked to some of those very people that were working with that bill, and never once, we were there for other issues. And I guarantee to the public, if we had had any idea of the way that was going to go, or the urgency and the way that it was going to be presented, we had you all there, and we have a team along with ourselves to talk with those individuals and try to get them to change the way that the outcome of what it was. I also like the fact that we'll be using a sort of a method that will not only just concentrate on the Jefferson County delegation, but we can, because even other members of the legislature may have some type of impact on the members of our own delegation, and especially when it's a statewide bill. So I don't think any of us are shy about following you all down there and going down there with that message. So I know that's something that we would want to do and we pledge ourselves to do. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Morrison, I thank you so much for bringing this information and representing the Jones Group and the efforts that you all make on behalf of the city of Birmingham. And we look forward to next round. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Hilliard. So now we just wanted to focus a little bit on what did we go down there? What was our objective and what was the outcome? And then maybe today we could just get some ideas of these bills that we might want to start filing again and again, how to push that dialogue along. So, Ms. Alyssa, go ahead and introduce yourself and let them know who you are.
Okay, I'm Alyssa Thomas. I serve as Program Manager in the Governmental Affairs Division of Mayor Whitfin's office. And so one of the items that was on our agenda, we had 6, was the vacant property registration bill. It was introduced by Representative Tillman. That was HB 331. It was a local bill. It was advertised for 4 consecutive weeks. It was met with opposition from realtors, but our Senior Public Affairs Officer, Mr. Hilliard, and also Representative Datcher met with the group, and they ironed out any concerns relating to the timeline and definitions in this bill. I think we all know about the Glock switch ban, SB 116 with Senator Barfoot, so if you want to go into detail, or we could just, okay. We also had the Alabama Land Bank Act Amendment, which was introduced as SB 342 by Senator Coleman Madison. This was amendments to the existing Land Bank Act. What actually ended up happening with this bill was due to judicial precedence changes with the recent court case, there were legislation updates that were required, and so the necessary changes delayed the bill's introduction, although it was introduced. It is now postponed indefinitely with the end of session. So the Birmingham Housing Trust Fund, that was going to be carried by Representative Datcher. It actually was given to LSA. It sat with LSA for a while, so it is postponed indefinitely. And with the Community Land Trust Act, unfortunately, due to time constraints, it also has been postponed indefinitely. And lastly, there's the unauthorized drop-offs, which was introduced by Representative Lipscomb. That was HB 162. And this is just dealing with, or attempting to deal with, persons who may be dropped off by other municipalities into ours, those that may be experiencing homelessness. So it was introduced, and given the end of the session, it too has been postponed indefinitely. So those are some that you can, I guess, assume will be on our upcoming agenda.
Okay, thank you. And just for my purposes of understanding, when you said postponed indefinitely, that would mean then, as Mr. Morrison has said, we'd have to pre-file that again and start all over, just because they went through that series and it got filed and considered, it would still have to be pre-filed again.
Yes, ma'am. Any local bill is gonna have to be re-advertised.
Okay.
But postponed indefinitely, that is just because the end of the session has come. So,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
So I'm back. I wanted to fill in just a couple of things. Some of the issues happened, for instance, the unauthorized drop-off bills. I was in the committee when it came up before it got indefinitely postponed. One of the consequences of the unauthorized drop-off bill would be that you would have to catch the law enforcement officer that was actually dropping them off. Several legislators were very reticent to penalize a law enforcement officer they said was just doing their job because of that. So what we'll have to do as we look to refile that bill, whether we file the bill or we work with somebody else, because we know that issue is how do you punish or penalize a law enforcement officer that is doing that drop-off? How do we find a creative way to come up with that? So those are the kind of things. With the Alabama Vacant Property Registration Act that Representative Tillman had, as soon as he dropped that, he had immediate opposition from the realtors. I, along with Representative Datcher, had the opportunity to talk to several representatives from the realtors or whatever, and they have issues with a lot of the bill. So what the decision we'll have to make is, especially like with what Neil from the Jones Group said, if we pre-file the bill early, we'll have to make the decision, how much of it are we willing to compromise with them? And then at that point, how do we push forward? Because I can tell you right now, talking to them, they just don't like the bill. So the compromises that we will make will have to be what you do in legislature, which is a negotiation process to come up with a bill that we think still represents the goals and values that we have and what they're trying to accomplish. For the last couple of years, I've said to y'all, I want to give y'all homework, and I said I want y'all to follow a hard bill, and I want you to follow a soft bill. And honestly, I believe the waterworks bill was punishment for all of us, because what I wanted you to see when you follow a soft bill and a hard bill is that so many times people go, well, why didn't y'all pass that? I know this representative, I know this senator, and just go talk to such and such. And what I wanted you to see in following a soft bill and a hard bill was how things change even though you talk to individuals. how you look people in the eyes and they said, I'm good with that. And then they go and speak against the bill that you just talked to them about. The same way you ask somebody, do you have any issues? And you talk to them 3 times and they go in and light in on a committee and you're like, where'd that come from? And I think that as we, the council and the mayor side, as we understand more in depth, that sometimes I think stuff looks easy because we've had such successful years passing bills from entertainment zones, speeding bills through like exhibition driving, and it makes it seem like, hey, we can do this stuff, it's easy. We can do it because of the Jones Group, the work we do, the legislators that work with us, the Jefferson County delegations, our expertise, our experience, it does happen. But then when you run into a buzzsaw, like what happened, what you saw was you guys had the opportunity to this year come down to the legislature for several committees, for several events. This year, for the first time, everybody in government affairs made it to the legislature multiple days and came down. We had our own people inside who are actually in the legislature down there that can watch things. And you see that the process is the process. And when things are moving and happening, that, sometimes we win and sometimes we lose. What Alyssa didn't tell you about our bills was this session was a hard session because what happened was we were playing defense so much, it made offense almost impossible. So by the time the waterworks bill came down, I want to just name a few, we had people attacking us on things on the ground like gas licenses that said we could no longer set franchise fees and we couldn't charge a certain amount and they could just dig up the street or do whatever. That bill passed. Had we not had a last-minute negotiation or whatever, we were trying to hold that bill off, but that bill started from the top. We have OCA, we have PEP, everybody's trying to stop that bill. And then about, one thing that wasn't mentioned was the police chief removal bill. They were trying to do a bill that would allow them to remove our police chief. We're fighting that because it was pre-filed from the very beginning. So, obviously we had the positive things like Glock Switch, which we knew about before. We did press conferences, we had that going, but it didn't pass immediately. It still waited a minute, so you're still working on that and people are talking about changes. Unlawful to shoot in occupied dwellings and vehicles, which passed, which was a great thing we wanted. It changed sponsors. So the person that we thought was going to sponsor was Representative Drummond. It got taken away from Representative, well, I shouldn't say taken away. She allowed them to take that bill and add it into the governor's package. So the kinds of things that we talk about, just because I want you guys to really understand this, we had on our agenda, number 4, on the public safety legislative agenda was the state sovereign immunity equivalent for municipal law enforcement and fire personnel. So all we wanted was that municipal officers, so officers and firemen on the municipal level, on the city level, that they had the same protections that like sheriffs deputies, and like Aaliyah has. We just asked for that. Well, that bill got taken and moved into the governor's agenda and then changed so much that cities like ours were fighting the bill because it changed the standard by which these officers are judged so that people who have malintent might be able to get, and it passed. So people had malintent might be able to get away with a little bit more. Well, as a city, it sounds good for us, but as people and as councilors who represent districts and as the mayor and other people, you recognize the effect that it has on people and you go, this was the bill we're supporting, now we're fighting it. And that's why you literally have to follow the process because so much of that stuff is happening. The Waterworks came around, they had a bill in PEP that would have affected PEP that was saying that we couldn't set a standard on code, that no longer could municipalities be able to restrict or inspect, that it all had to go to the state. Well, we're fighting that from day one. But once again, it's not on our agenda. We're not talking about that. So we're split up, all of us trying to go different places. And the Jones Group is an amazing group. But their places, we're places, and then so many bills are being dropped that I haven't even talked to you about taking over police, the way they want to do it. Listen, we had, as y'all heard, we had people saying they wanted to make it criminal offenses for people not reporting proper numbers. Now, it sounds good because you say, hey, I want numbers out there, but criminal offenses for municipal officers? So what I'm saying is, so that's a bill that you don't necessarily say the concept is wrong. Okay, people want to know numbers. The public has a right to know. That's fine. But criminal stuff, so you take a concept that's good, so we're discerning and looking through these bills, trying to see, can we make this, livable and workable if the sponsors will work with you? Because I'll tell you, we asked so many people, like, hey, you think this is a great bill, you want it down there, just, exempt us out. Take class 1 municipalities out. And they're like, no, it doesn't affect you, but we want you still to be in the bill, which means it does affect you. I say all that to say that that's what we're dealing with. So some of the things on the legislative agenda, luckily this year, all of those bills got advertised. All those bills, most of them were dropped or they were introduced. So we have those bills. I can tell you now that we will probably have to make an adjustment, like I told you, to the unauthorized drop-off bill, because we know what the issue is going to be. We will definitely have to make an adjustment to the Alabama vacant property registration bill. And those are some of the things that we'll try to get in touch with people early, because you do want to pre-file them. But that is a thing that sometimes pushes off how long it takes you to pre-file a bill. Because if I can just go with the bill we have now, Alyssa could give it to the clerk's office or OCA, they can go ahead and pre-file it. But if it's the wrong bill, you do know that if we introduce a bill and we make a material change, it has to be re-advertised. So we do want to advertise, we do want to be on a schedule, but we got to make sure it's right. Because if you make a small amendment, it's fine. But if you make a material change to the bill and what they consider to be material, it has to be re-advertised. So I always say, hey, it's great if we're sure. So probably the Land Bank Act, we're good. We can probably go with that. We can probably go with the Birmingham Housing Trust Fund bill, probably the Community Land Trust Act. But we know on those two unauthorized drop-offs and Alabama vacant property registration that we will probably need to make changes. I think I've put most of the things that I wanted to say in here. Neil was right. We decided not to go this year, although initially it was on our agenda with the Personnel Board legislation. I will say this, there were some very good talks going on. They have been working. I have literally talked to every department head that's affected by the Personnel Board changes, from OCA, the fire department, the police department, about the things we need to do. And as of now, those changes, they've been working on things, they've been negotiating, working things out. I do know that several departments are much more pleased with the way things are working, that the Personnel Board has been working with them on those kind of things. So that's a situation where probably legislation will not be necessary, and we can make the necessary changes without having to go that route. And the last thing is he left, but Representative Datcher had introduced a bill that got caught up at the end of the year. It was a city employees. It would allow city employees to be able to take advantage of certain things. Right now, according to ethics, there's certain things that city employees can't take a part of because they think it would be unethical. But there's certain things, especially with what we want to do with our law enforcement and our firefighters, some of the down payment assistance out of Land Bank and other places to help draw more law enforcement people here to help with recruiting efforts to be able to allow them to get those same benefits. So we just wanted to codify that to make sure that that would pass ethical challenges, just in case somebody came up with it. Once again, that's the kind of bill that I can explain it to you, you'll understand, but it met challenges because people are like, well, why y'all trying to just give money to city employees? And it's like, no, that's not the purpose, and that's not what the bill is designed for. But those are the kind of reasons why we have our team, their team, and why we all work together.
Thank you so much. You did bring up the last about Representative Datcher's bill. We were thinking that passed. Did it pass or did it not?
No.
Okay, because we did have an item that came through Budget and Finance yesterday where there's an opportunity to secure more money for down payment assistance, and we were thinking that that was in effect, and so it would open up a window for more city employees.
Right, and there's a possibility, and I'm going to leave that to OCA, that we can still do some of it. Mm-hmm. Some of the things are gray area, and we just have to make sure we evaluate and see what legal challenges there may be to those kind of things. But it's actually a toss-up as to whether it's probably okay. What Representative Datcher was trying to do is make sure that we codified that it is okay, as opposed to having to have any kind of litigation concerned with it.
Very good. Well, we'll definitely be looking for the outcome of that, because I think that's something that
Absolutely.
we definitely will want to push through, because we're helping everyone else. We'd like to see our employees also have an opportunity to have that opportunity as well. Dr. O'Quinn, did you have any questions or comments?
I mean, the only thing that I'm thinking about is, we make some attempt to have engagement with our state legislators at the county level. But, you know, one of the lessons that I got from this past session is that, you know, maybe we need to do more to have FaceTime, you know, with them. So, you know, my ask is that, you know, if there are opportunities for us, you know, as council members to, you know, interact, and these can just be, you know, social things, but, you know, I wasn't entirely convinced, you know, that a lot of the folks that we saw when we went down there knew who the hell I was, you know. I was just another person, you know, wandering the halls. So, you know, we got some state representatives that are part of the Jefferson County delegation that have a little tiny piece of Jefferson County. And they don't know us from Adam, you know. So, you know, that's all the more reason why when we do show up in Montgomery, you know, and are advocating for things that we want, you know, I think it helps that they actually, you know who we are, you know.
And we can definitely work on more of that. One of the legislators brought to me and asked me to take to the council and just said, hey, if when the councilors did events in their district, if they invited the legislators that cross-sectioned across, because I think a lot of you guys have at least 3 legislators and possibly 2 senators, maybe, I don't think anybody has 3. I do know that several people have 2. But they did ask, because I was asked, well, how come the councilors don't invite us more to events in their district? And I think they see the town halls and other things or whatever. And I'm not in any way saying how we would go about doing that. I'm just saying that it was something that they wanted me to bring to you guys about possibly involving them more in things in the individual councilors' districts. That would be obviously a counselor by counselor decision. But we will work and see how we can do. I will tell you, as I'm sure Mr. Jones, Mr. Greg Jones will tell you too, it is not the easiest thing to coordinate the members of the Jefferson County delegation with the members of the council and find a day and a time and whatever. And some people say, let's do noon. Some people say, let's do morning. Some people say, I can't come in the morning because I work, can't come at noon. It has to be after hours. Some people are like, I gotta get my kids, my grandkids, whatever. And so that's what makes some of this difficult, but we will see what we can do about maybe even other events, about maybe getting a little creative about how we might better provide opportunities for you guys just to interact a little bit more.
Thank you. I think that's a fair challenge or a fair list of things that we could work on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And anytime we can improve communication, that helps to build relationships. And sometimes it just comes down to a relationship that you may have or a trust that you may have with that individual, that they will be willing to listen and go forward with what you're asking them to do. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Really do. Well, thank you both for bringing these items to us. I hope that any of our residents that were listening or staff did get some understanding of what this last legislation did and did not do for us and what those outcomes were, and you have some idea of how that process goes. As far as old and new business, I do just want to bring up one item of new business is that part of the administration committee, we will be resurrecting our process for the Gallery of Distinguished Citizens. And this is an opportunity for the council to honor and select and honor residents and honor the work that they're doing for the city and name them as one of our distinguished citizens. With the COVID and things that were going on with that particular council and this one, we do have some opportunities. Typically, it's 4 during that our time on the council. So we'll be looking at those numbers. So there will be a meeting tomorrow internally where we'll be discussing that process. I am excited that we have done some things to give some structure to that. I know residents are beginning to call offices already and to ask, how can I get to be one of those distinguished citizens? So as soon as we finalize that process and the criteria for selection, we'll be sure to do that. And we'll get more information to the members of the council and the public about that. Anything that you want to add, Dr. Quinn? You good? All right, thank you. So I'll entertain a motion to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn.
Second, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks again, everyone.